welcome to the Talking Crop podcast. My name is Kathryn Seebruck, and I'm a commercial agriculture educator with University of Illinois Extension, serving Daviess-Stephenson, and Winnebago counties. Talking Crop is a row crop production podcast, and episodes typically occur every other week during the growing season, but we're putting out some special bonus episodes throughout January to spotlight each of the presenters joining us at the Northwest Illinois Agronomy Summit, happening January 28th at Highland Community College in Freeport. The Northwest Illinois Agronomy Summit is a one-day conference tailored towards corn and soybean producers, agribusiness representatives, and ag agency professionals to provide them with the latest in agronomic research from university faculty and extension specialists. Our goals are to provide producers with applied information they can implement on their farms and to give agriculture professionals the knowledge they need to serve the farmers they work with. You can register online for the Northwest Illinois Agronomy Summit at go.illinois.edu/agsfreeport, or you can call our Stephenson County office at 815-235-4125. Registration is $25 and includes lunch. 5 continuing education units will be available for certified crop advisors. As of last year, this program has been adopted across the state, and you can find a list of all agronomy summits in the series at go.illinois.edu/agronomy summits. As mentioned previously, these special bonus episodes are meant to introduce you to our speakers and give you a taste of what they'll be speaking on at the Agronomy Summit in Freeport on January 28th. The next guest for our bonus episodes is Mark Kendall, research agronomist for the University of Wisconsin-Madison Soybean and Small Grains Extension Program. His presentation is titled Foliar Fertilizers: When do we see the best bang for the buck in soybean? Mark will be highlighting research results that demonstrate how to make foliar fertilizers fit best in soybean production to provide a positive return on investment. Please enjoy this special bonus episode of Talking Crop with Mark Kendall, who will be joining us at the Northwest Illinois Agronomy Summit on January 28th. We hope to see you there. Hello, Mark, and welcome to the Talking Crop podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Kathryn. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the offer.
I explained in the intro already a little bit about this, but this is a special episode of Talking Crop. This is occurring outside of the normal time frame because you are one of our speakers at the Northwest Illinois Agronomy Summit coming up here on January 28th at Highland Community College in Freeport. And so we're really excited to have you. And this episode is just an opportunity for us to get to know you a little bit before folks hopefully come and see you speak at the Agronomy Summit and to get a taste of what you will be presenting on at the summit. So, Mark, can you first just provide us with some of your background? So what is your position now? What are you doing? And how did you get here?
Sure thing, Kathryn. So I've been in my position now for full-time for about a year. I'm a research agronomist with the University of Wisconsin-Madison, specifically with the UW Bean team is the title of our research lab. And we're the research and extension lab that focuses on soybean and small grains, primarily soft red winter wheat agronomic research. And I've had a few different careers leading up to this, but I've been a student in the lab in the past, so that's how I got familiar with the lab. So it's a group of probably about 12 of us now. We're led by a professor at the university, Sean Conley, the Wisconsin State Soybean and Small Grain Specialist. And then there's myself, and Adam is my counterpart, and we're kind of the boots on the ground, day-to-day, getting the research implemented and done in the fields. And then we have a variety of students, clerical staff, people that focus on statistics that help to support the lab and do different functions. So like I said, I've been full-time with the lab for about a year, but known about the lab a lot longer as a student. So then just a little bit more background about myself. This summit will not be very far away from home for me. I am originally from Southwest Wisconsin, small town called Mineral Point, and grew up on a farm, multi-generational farm. Now my older brothers and I rent the farm from my parents so they can be semi-retired and go follow their grandkids around with activities and that. So we milked cows growing up, and now we're mostly just a cash grain and beef operation. So we grow soybeans, corn, and alfalfa. So always had a deep passion for farming and agriculture. And so that's how it's just led me down the steps of going to school at UW-Madison and working in retail for a while, and then in research support at one of the larger research farms in Wisconsin, and then now, which has led me to my current position. So bounced around a few different times, but I've never really been far from home, from Southwest, from Southern Wisconsin.
Great. Yeah. And it's always nice to have that local connection too, especially when you're in an extension or an adjacent role. So that's really, really awesome. So Mark, your presentation title for the Agronomy Summit is Foliar Fertilizers. When do we see the best bang for the buck in soybean? Can you give us an overview of what your presentation will be covering?
Yeah, sure thing, Kathryn. It'll be made up of three main parts. So the first part, and it'll probably make up a majority of the talk, will be on a large research trial that we participated in 2019 and 2020 on foliar fertilizers applications in soybean. And so that was a multi-state trial. Besides so most of our program's funding is from soybean farmers through the Checkout program, whether it's our state program or the United Soybean Board at the national level. And then we also collaborate with a lot of our counterparts in the other states where soybeans are grown. And so we'll do a fair amount of multi-state studies as well. So this foliar fertilizer study, it was over 2 years, and it was across 16 different states, and it was 46 different fields in total over those 2 years. So I was looking at, if I remember correctly, 5 or 6 just common, commercially available to farmers foliar fertilizer products. And so to keep things consistent, for the most part, trials, it was a small plot research trial. There were anywhere from probably 4 to 8 replications at each site. And at each site, the applications were made at R3, the soybean growth stage R3, to kind of coincide of when farmers might be applying a fungicide insecticide application. And they have an opportunity to add in foliar fertilizers to the spray tank. So a bulk of the seminar will be kind of going through those results. So that was part one. So then part two, we'll be starting to dabble in some applications we've looked at with our spray drone. So our program, and this was funded through the soybean and the corn checkoff programs in Wisconsin, has a Agris T40 spray drone that we can either spread dry fertilizers and seed, cover crop seed, what have you, or it's got a spray unit as well. So then we can mix up liquid applications of fungicide, herbicide, nutrients, things like that. So where that, again, just kind of dipping our toes in to some of the fertilizer work with the spray drone. And really the idea came last summer. I got a paper forwarded to me from my boss, Sean, and the University of Minnesota had finished publishing some work on what is the critical yield determining period in soybean. And if you brought this up to a farmer, and I'll bring this up to the group, and they'll pretty much all know the answer. They'll all say August is the most important month for soybeans, and that's correct. That's when it's in the seed fill. I believe it's like late pod development and then seed fill period. It's going to come to no surprise. That's when the most critical period is. So reading that, I said, well, all right, in this study from 2019-2020, the multi-state study, it was at R3, which again is also anytime, once soybean starts flowering, then it's really important until the finish line. But I thought, well, okay, so soybean R3, that's probably in late July. This paper's saying, well, the critical period's a little bit later. So I thought, we have a spray drone. We've got fields available to us at the Arlington Ag Research Station, just north of Madison. Let's go out and just buy a nutrient product at a local retailer. Again, because this was all put together pretty hastily. So it's like, if I was actually doing this on my farm at home, all right, let's go out and get a product real quick, find some fields, let's do some strip trials. And so we applied it with the spray drone, and then we got yield data from the research farm, from the case 6088 combine with a 30-foot head on it. So this one, while the first topic I mentioned was more on small plot research, the treatments were applied with hand booms, plot combines were used to obtain the data. This was with the spray drone. Obviously, things need to be a little bit I wouldn't say it's as precise as small plot research. You got to account for drift. You usually have to have larger plots and trials set up, and then having the availability to get yield data then is really helpful as well. And it's great working with the research farm. They've got a truck scale, so usually we can trust the data that we're getting from them. So that's part one. Part two. Part three then is just some nitrogen work we've looked at on soybean. And nitrogen and trying to get a yield response in soybean is very, very difficult to find when you're most likely to get a positive yield response and a positive return on your investment. So we've actually looked at, because in southern Wisconsin, we've had some periods the last few years of some pretty substantial rainfalls. We've had some fields where it's been ponding and the soybean crop is just totally decimated, but we've also had fields where the crop is just, the roots are wet, underwater just for a little bit, and then it starts to drain away. And so we looked at that situation, and again, it's kind of a quick reaction, like, oh, all right, so with flooded roots, we're losing nitrogen from the soil, denitrification from flooded soils, and we're also, because of the roots are flooded, we're not getting biological nitrogen fixation in the soybean roots happening. So, and at the same time, the soils are saturated. You couldn't get a ground rig in to spread urea to spray nitrogen solution out there to compensate for this. Well, let's take our spray drone out there and again apply some urea and see the results. So because that one is a little bit harder to find the right conditions, right? We're not going to go out and we don't have the capabilities to flood fields. We've just been kind of lucky the last couple of years to have a couple sites that, get a call maybe here at the research station, a farmer we work with a lot of great farmers around the state to do our on-farm research. Like, hey, I've got a field. Can you guys come out? And if it works to come out, spread some urea with the drone, get the combine yield data, or if the situation's right, use our plot combine and harvest it. And so that one is also still kind of early, but some cool results so far. So that's a very long-winded way of giving my 3 bullet points of what's, at least right now, I'm planning to talk about.
That sounds like it'll be really interesting. And I was curious, as you were talking about the spray drone work, you were talking about how you were looking at potentially a couple different time frames of when it's best to do those applications with the drone. You mentioned both R3, but then also in August, right? And I know there's a little bit of a range. So did you end up only applying at one time point, or did you space it and do multiple?
In this case, we just did it at one time point in August. It was just one of those. I think R3 had already passed. The soybeans were probably R4 when I was reading the paper. And I thought, August is probably the slowest time for our program, as almost all of our work has been completed. And then we're just kind of gearing up for the harvest season. And so it's like, we've got the time, we've got the tools, let's go out and see what happens.
Along those same lines, are there any plans to do research, kind of alluding to what I mentioned, basically kind of babying the soybeans along, starting at one point and continually making applications through a certain point?
That's definitely something I think we should consider. We've done some work in the past on, kind of throwing the kitchen sink at soybeans. And now with the spray drone, for example, we've got another tool that we can go out later in the season when, maybe we don't want to be taking ground equipment out there, either due to narrow row spacing or just the canopy started to close and we don't want to leave tracks through the soybeans again in the field. But I would say a trial where, like you said, we're trying to baby the soybeans, or making sure they never have a bad day, so to speak. That's a big corn line. Be interesting to see in soybeans. And I probably one of the messages that I'll try to drive home during the seminar is it's just hard to have. It's just hard to find that silver bullet approach or application. That's kind of a weed science term. When glyphosate-resistant crops came out, they thought, Roundup is just going to make it so easy for weed control in the future, and now we've run into issues. I think the same thing with trying to increase soybean yield, profitability, to address nutrient concerns, or to diagnose or to see responses from nutrient applications. It's hard, at least what I've seen so far in my career, it's hard to find like a broad sweeping silver bullet solution. And so one thing I'd like to experiment more with in the future, and I hear it from different podcasts or different resources, if you listen to someone say like Randy Dowdy, is the tissue testing. Some of the people that are really having a lot of success in yield contests, they're tissue testing quite frequently, and then putting out enough nutrients to make a difference, and to correct that deficiency. I think a lot of them have the access to irrigation and fertigation, but again, going out there and taking the tests, whether it's from the soil, from the plants, and say, all right, I'm deficient in nutrient XYZ. I'm going to go out and find a way to significantly get that nutrient out there, and to see if that then will get us a better and more consistent yield and profit response.
Yeah, and obviously in today's conditions, babying along the soybeans is not something that many people are going to be doing. And so that's why I really like that your presentation, certainly in your title, and I'm sure you're going to be covering it as well, has that focus, so to speak, on return on investment. So I'm very interested to see what you have to say about that at the end of the day, when all your analyses come together in your presentation. So Mark, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. And again, I look forward to hearing your presentation and seeing you in January.
Thank you for having me, Kathryn. I'm excited for the opportunity to go down there. Hopefully I don't get booed too much, but it's going to be fun.